Welcome, my friends. Kevin Shirka here, the Indiana Jones nerd yet again. Indiana Jones and the Treasure of the Aztecs is an upcoming fan film from the Oliver Springs Music Club. It features an all-child cast with its adult crew bringing a professional level of quality to the production. It is an incredibly sophisticated film, and I know that people are going to get really excited once they see the trailer drop later this week. I had the chance to sit down with director Kevin Croxton to talk about the film. Let's see what he had to say. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for taking your time to talk with me today.
My pleasure. You as well. How's everything?
Everything is great. Just in the final stages of this film. We were supposed to be done, but our last shoot, we were shooting a horse chase with the 1940s era Army Jeep, and the Army Jeep broke down.
Oh.
And so he had to order a part for it. He knew what was wrong with it. So we're going to come back on July 22nd. It's a Saturday morning, and just listen. We've got 17 seconds left on this film. That's it, dude. 17 seconds. And it's been a lot of fun, man. It's been kids have had a blast working on this. So it's
maybe we can start. First of all, you can introduce yourself and introduce your project.
Sure. Well, I'm Kevin Croxton. I teach elementary school music in Van Buren, Arkansas. I live across the river in Fort Smith, Arkansas. I've been teaching for 25 years. And I also I write music for films, and I have for over 2 decades. And this is leading into basically what I do with the kids is I now make films with them, because for a long time the kids knew that I worked in the film industry on the side, like teacher by day, composer by night, and they were always really excited about that. But I thought they need to learn about this stuff, and so I had a lot of friends, cinematographers and such, that we got together and said, what can we do with these children to kind of teach them a little bit? And so we started really simple several years ago, like a one-day shoot, relatively no budget at all, and we did we sang Misty Mountain. The kids sang Misty Mountain's Cold from The Hobbit. They dressed up as the dwarves, and it was simple, man. And I record all the music in my studio, in my recording studio, and do recording sessions with the kids, and of course they lip synced on set. And man, the kids were excited to see it. Just on YouTube, it took off, and so it was good for them to see their hard work become a success. And over the years, our stuff has just grown, man. I mean, it went from a really less than a day shoot to now. Up to now, we're just finishing our latest film, which is Indiana Jones and the Treasure of the Aztecs. And my gosh, man, I was just calculating this. I think with the kids, not with editing and doing all the music, just time I've spent filming with the kids, probably close to 100 hours over the last several months, So a big difference from many years ago when we started with that Hobbit film. No, but it's been a lot of fun. We've kind of gotten into this fan film niche. Everything we've done is like a fan film. And here's something else you need to know: that our films, the kids in our films are adults. So you have to just go into that remembering that these kids are playing adults, which is one of the things that I think kind of makes it charming. You know what I mean? When you watch it. About 3 years ago, 3 films ago, sorry, our stuff really took off and we started making film festivals and such. We did a Star Trek fan film. We shot about 3 hours from here. We found out that there was some replica Star Trek sets from the classic series. And so we shot that. And literally when you watch it, it feels like you step back into the 60s and are watching a classic Star Trek episode, only with children. And it's shorter, though, of course. And then we did a Batman 66 film with a replica Batmobile. And again, you watch it, we got all the spinning transitions. I mean, it's just like you're watching classic Batman with Adam West. I mean, we had him climb the walls and everything. the next film that we did, the one before this, we did a James Bond film, and I wrote this Bond theme. And that's how I knew that this was the one, because I try to do something different every time. I don't like to stay on the same thing, and I heard this Bond theme, and I'm like, okay, it's like classic 70s Bond. And so I wrote the song, and again, if you watch it, it starts out with the gun barrel. We've got when they sing the song, it's like you see the floating silhouettes and all that. It's classic Bond, except with children. But the catch is we got a cameo from George Lazenby, who played Bond on Her Majesty's Secret Service in 1969. And actually, it was before we started shooting. I'd written everything, and I saw him online talking about the 50th anniversary of his movie. And so, I messaged him, not thinking I'd ever hear back, and said, would you like to be a part of our film? And I had this idea on how we can include him as M's boss, G. And so he messaged me back and said, talk to my agent. And I did. And about 2 weeks later, he messaged me back and says, we can work this out. So we got Lazenby in our film for one scene. After we released Bond, listen, and it in the children's category and fan film category, it won things all over the place. We won in London and Singapore, Hong Kong, Houston. It was crazy. And these kids, to watch their works be so successful was great. And so what happened with Indy was, I knew I always wanted to do one because Indy is my favorite. I grew up on Indy. The only Indy movie that I didn't see in the theater was Raiders, and I was in second grade when it came out. Of course, I just recently saw it when they re-released it, and that was amazing, dude. I don't know, did you get a chance to see it on the re-release?
I did see it. Yeah, that was I've seen it on the big screen before, but there was definitely something very special about seeing it this time. Yeah.
Oh, dude, it was awesome, and you pick up so many things that you don't catch, even on a big screen TV at home. But anyway, so yeah, I grew up on Indy. Always my favorite. My brother-in-law, who happened to be my best friend growing up, that's another story. But my brother-in-law, he and I, we would go to the Dollar House when Indy came to the Dollar House, and we watched it 1 billion times at the Dollar House. It's like we could literally sit there and start speaking Last Crusade, and we could just speak every line. So I always knew at some point I wanted to do that. And when I heard that they were going to make a new Indy movie, I'm like, oh, this is the time. And I didn't know what the story was, but I knew that my son, he's now in college, but when he was in Boy Scouts, and one of his scout leaders had this 1940s era Army Jeep. And I thought, well, I also know a guy that I've worked on through the film industry that's a horseman. And he'd always said that if we wanted to do something with kids, he was game for it. So I called him, and there's this arid rock quarry, which I thought, that could make like a really good canyon, like in Mexico. And I'm like, so I called the rock quarry people. I called the guy that owns the Jeep and talked to them about it, and talked to my friend with the horse. And I said, would you jump into an Army Jeep, moving? And he's like, yeah. So when everybody agreed to it, I'm like, okay, I'm making Indiana Jones now, because I wanted to end with that. That was like, I didn't know what the story was, but I knew how I wanted it to end. With the villain trying to escape with some MacGuffin. And so we just kind of went from there. And I wrote this story. And one of the things that was, since we'd had a cameo in our previous film, I'm like, man, I want to get some kind of cameo in this, and all of a sudden, I read an article where Karen Allen was talking about how she would like to sometime revisit her character and talk about family, like what her history was about. You know what I mean? As Marion Ravenwood, you know what I mean? Like talk about Marion Ravenwood's history and Abner. And I thought, because with Lazenby's cameo in our Bond film, it was really cool, but it wasn't essential to the film. You know what I mean? It was a really nice add-on, and it was cool. But I thought, let's see if we can get Karen Allen involved somehow and make it kind of integral to the story. So I And let me also tell you this. I thought, well, I sent this the year after Crystal Skull, okay? So I'm like, there's no way that like with Lazenby, he sent us he videoed his cameo, and we did it like in a green screen in a painting, you know what I mean? Worked out perfect. But there's no way we could do that with this. So I'm like, how could we make our 11-year-old kid who's going to play Indiana Jones married to someone that's much, much, much older? So I thought, well, what if we could do like, before he goes out on his big mission, what if he could go back to his office and have a conversation with her, like a phone call? You know what I mean? Because it would be her voice. It would be realistic. So what I did was I found her agent in New York. And, she lives up in New England, and so I called and talked to the agent's assistant. Actually, I talked to the agent's assistant and told him what we were doing. Sent the trailer for our Bond film and said, "This is what we do. Would Karen Allen like to be a part of this?" And so he talked to the agent, and then she talked to Karen Allen, and they got back with me and said, "Yeah, she'll do it." So, man, I was so excited. So I've got the script the way I wanted it to. I sent her the lines. So I actually, and she sent them back. She gave me multiple takes of these with different inflections, and again, her lines, the MacGuffin. What leads to it it starts out with an unfinished question. How we have like a prologue, like where he goes on an adventure and does something that kind of relates to the story, and then he'll go back to the college after that, and then he'll go on the big adventure. So in the very beginning, the thing he's searching for is tied to an unfinished quest of Abner Ravenwood. And so that's kind of how I did this. And so, after the beginning of the film, he goes back and teaches in the college, and then he goes to his office to kind of pack up and get ready, and she calls him, and so there's this conversation they have, and she's angry because again, he's a kid, but he's supposed to be getting older. He's settled down. He's married, and she doesn't want him running off on some adventure. But he kind of convinces her, "Hey, this is related to your father," and she knows what he's talking about, and so it's like she gives him her blessing to go on and do this. So it was kind of a cool deal, man. And when we shot it, I got a black and white photo, like if you saw the trailer, there's a little black and white photo on the desk, and it's just like when it starts and ends, you kind of hear her, and I scored the Marion theme underneath it. It's pretty cool. But yeah, so it was a blessing to get to have her even just in one scene, and that she would do that, and then again, it's tied to the story. But no, this is the longest film we've ever done. Before this, the longest was almost 13 minutes. This is, with credits, it's going to be 28 minutes.
Wow, man, that's awesome. What a treat for the fans. That's going to be great.
And I'll tell you this too: parents are going to love this, kids are going to love this. But I mean, I don't speak too soon, but like indie fans, I really think they're gonna. There's a lot of fun Easter eggs in there. My cinematographer on this film, his name is Clay Pruitt. He's amazing. I've had some great cinematographers. This guy is, oh my gosh. The cool thing is though, he's probably a bigger indie fan than I am, and that's hard for me to imagine. So, and of course we went through storyboards, and I showed him what we were doing. But there was one scene that he'd been busy, and he flies out everywhere. He's in Atlanta one week. He's in Canada another week. He's just on the move with this film production company. And so he comes in and hadn't gone over the storyboards as much as some of the other scenes. And so he comes in and he listened to their dialogue, and he just started laughing. He's like, "Oh my gosh, this is great." I mean, because like I took some lines and I twisted them up a little bit, so yeah, I think that fans are going to love it. We've shot most of the time in our past films. We've shot close in the general area where we live, except for Star Trek. We took a bus ride about 3 hours from here to those sets. But other than that, they've all been in the area. But this indie film, like I said, we live in Western Arkansas, and we have traveled literally all over the state. We went down, there's a place called Fouche Creek, which is down in Little Rock, which is where the Capitol is. And it looks like it's an urban wetlands. It's like a swamp, you know what I mean? And so we started in a swamp. And then there's 2 different caves in the film. And they're probably 2 hours north of here, each one of them. And of course we shot in the quarry for some of this canyon stuff. We've made 25 Soviet Cold War era outfits for this. And the kids, let me say this, there's singing involved. Less singing in this than some of the other ones, but the kids sing in Russian, dude. I got the kids to sing in Russian and we subtitle it. And they speak in Russian. A lot of times, like the main villain or somebody, they'll turn and they'll speak in Russian. In the trailer, I don't know if you saw at the very end that girl who walked up and just knocked him down. I don't know if you remember that in the trailer. He lasted. Go back. Of course, you're the only. You've got the surprise. You get to see the trailer first. But we're color correcting it. It'll be out. Depending on when you hear it, it may be already out. It'll be out next week. But that scene, the full scene when she walks up, this is the scene from Raiders with the mechanic and the plane. I mean, that's with Pat Roach. Yes, that's what it's reminiscent of. And she walks up and takes off her hat, and she's
in the trailer. I was like, oh yeah, that's great. I mean, I loved all the trailer, but definitely, yeah.
Well, that's one of my favorite scenes. And I did all the music on my studio, tried to give it that same kind of that feel. And she walks up and she starts speaking in Russian, and we subtitle it, So and again, when you read the subtitles, you're going to be like, oh yeah, I get it, So there's just a lot of fun things in this film, and I'm super excited for people to see it.
I had no idea what a sophisticated film it was that you guys are doing. Like, even a lot of things you told me is news to me, and yeah, I'm just really blown away and excited to see this. As you said, it's very charming the way that you do these things, these films. What are the unique challenges and benefits to working with children in this way?
Well, let me just say this too. I'll talk about some challenges. If you've ever been on a set of a film, they have a sound guy that has the microphone over them. Well, working with kids is different, especially, when it's not when the budgets, I mean, we obviously had more budget than we did on some of these other ones, but I didn't have a sound guy. So what we do is you know what ADR is?
Right.
It's ADRs, when they replace dialogue. Well, I do what I call a reverse ADR. And the kids come in and record all of their dialogue ahead of time. So I have the whole entire audio track done. And what we do is, so that way I can get them because I know what inflections, in terms of I want them to hit. And so I'll have them say their lines multiple times and we'll get the best takes and I'll put them in. And then I'll send them the scene ahead of time before we shoot. And I put little sync pops in there before they say a line, there'll be a little beep. So they'll know, they'll be able to time it and know when to start talking. And so when we're on set, we'll shoot each line a half dozen times from each angle. We might do set up a wide shot where you have all the kids talking to each other in the scene. And then we'll do that a half dozen times. And then we'll do each individual character the same way, each from close angles and we do, the reason we do them a half dozen times is to get good sync, make sure we've got a couple of good, really tight syncs. And of course I can make adjustments in my system, but so that's a little bit of a challenge, but it's by doing that, it's much cleaner audio. I've heard, and I'm not fan films are a lot of fun, and I've seen a lot of great film films, but sometimes the audio is not the highest quality sometimes, you know what I mean? You can hear background noise, and that's fine, and I understand. But it's for me, I want the audio to be super clean, you know what I mean? I think that makes a big difference, and it's a challenge to be able to get those kids to get good lip sync, but when we do, it makes a huge difference. You know what I mean? I can, I can, like I'll get just the sound is constant in the background and it's not, doesn't change. And so that's one challenge. Another thing that I'll give you an example. This was one of our shoots that we did at that rock quarry. That particular day I'm thinking of, we had probably 35 kids come that day, plus parents. And we had to I had people up front. And I'll tell you this too, and I want to get into support and talk to you about support on this, but there's an art center that's come in and helped us, called Arts on Main, and they got me a new editing system to work on, because I'm going to work on some other stuff with them as well. And they came in and were there to help get kids' costume. We had to get all the costumes all lined up for them to pick up, and so they distributed, and so they would have different call times, and we'd be down filming, and then other kids would come in, and it was in that particular day, man, it was the first time it just boom got hot, and we were melting, man. It was just like gruesome. So those are some of the challenges, that you face, especially when you have a lot of kids. And one of the shoots, one of the cave scenes we started in probably February, and oh my gosh, dude, it was opposite. I mean, it was so cold and muddy. So let me tell you this story. We were in Little Rock shooting at Foosh Creek. If you've seen in the trailer, you saw the canoe. Well, and I'm not going to try to give too much away, but we also have there's a 50s motorboat, and there's some other stuff in there. So the banks were really muddy, and we were trying to get these kids in there. And so, fortunately, I'm a fisherman, so I've got waders. So I put on my waders so I could get down to this. And I kid you not, I was almost waist deep in mud, just stepping into the bank. And so I'm like, oh my gosh. And my cinematographer, they were all sitting there laughing, taking pictures of me. It was like, man, don't do that. So we definitely had our challenges in making it, but man, I'm telling you, it's going to be worth it once we get this thing polished, I thought of one thing I got to share with you. So another cool thing was, I keep in contact with George Lazenby's agent. He lives in Sweden, and we'll just every so often we'll message each other. Well, whenever I was working on costumes, I'm telling you, that I could tell you about costumes, and that would take up like a whole episode. It'd be like, because we were going to get the Soviet costumes, we were going to get them from Ukraine, but this is before, because I started planning this before the invasion of Ukraine, and then that happened, and I couldn't get it, so we made them, and I have a costumer that I know from that makes movies. I mean, and so we hired her to come on, and we got all these different components to put together. But I made a lot of calls to Europe and stuff. So I got it for a while. I got international calling on my deal, so I could call places. I mean, we did because we've got a Herbert Johnson hat for our kid playing Indy. We did a Wested jacket. He's wearing legit stuff. And so I made lots and lots of calls all around. And so I thought, well, I'm going to call Lazenby's agent and talk to him. So we called and had a great talk. And he's like, if you ever need any advice about anything from Vic Armstrong, I know him really well. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. And so as we were working on this, I knew we were going to do the horse chase where my guy jumps onto the Jeep, and we were throwing punches. And so I sent him a message and said, hey, could you ask Vic Armstrong some stuff for me? So he says, man, just email me your stuff. And so I emailed him all these questions about throwing punches, and we'd already thrown some, and they look good, but I'm like, I want to polish these. And so I sent him my questions, especially about the horse chase. And Vic Armstrong emailed me back with this long list of things that he would do, and I thought that was really cool. So we're kind of trying to utilize what he recommended, So I thought that was just another cool thing about our film that Vic Armstrong gave us some advice. So I don't know, man.
Yeah, that's Cool. What is your like your background and experience with film and coming to the stage, and did you ever predict something like this?
Well, it's I've kind of come. I've told my wife recently. I was like, I've really kind of gotten full circle where I was. So whenever I was a kid, we cleared out my 2-car garage, and my mom got me this little video camera, and we would make our own movies, kind of like Spielberg did, if you've ever heard his stories. And we get kids from the neighborhood to come down, and of course, for the music, I dubbed in John Williams music, of course, you know what I mean? Because, but and so I thought, well, I'm gonna grow up and I'm gonna make movies and stuff. But then I kind of got away from that. I started writing music and got into once I got into college. My band director heard my music and he says, you sound like your music sounds like film music. So he had a friend that played flute on played all the sessions out in LA. And so one summer I went out and shadowed this guy and got to hang out on some of those sound stages and watch movies being scored. And that inspired me. And so I came home and started knocking on doors and did commercials and worked my way up to, I did documentaries. Then I went to short films, and I've done several features. I mean, with actors that were probably not like A-list, where there's some that were popular like 10, 15 years ago. You know what I mean? And then they're on. So I've scored several movies with people that you would know, but just are maybe they get a limited theater release and they can go to video direct to. And so because I'm not like, if I was living in LA, you kind of have to be in LA to really do all your networking there, And I was honestly, dude, I was content to stay here with my family, my wife's parents, my parents, and my kids. We're all in the same town, which is pretty cool. And I've been able to work on some amazing projects, dude. And so I've done some television programming and that background. Like I said, I did that for over 2 decades. And my kids, they knew that, but I never really, it was like, here's the school world and here's my film world, It's like they were separate. And so I'm like, why am I doing this? They need to be together, And so that's when I started merging them. And I'll tell you, and I'm not saying that I won't score more films. But I'll tell you this. Well, a couple things. This place I was telling you about called Arts on Main that kind of co-sponsored our film. They're wanting me to work with them, and we're going to try to build a film program, not just at my school, but like for the whole community for kids. So like kind of every other year, I used to do one of these films with my school every year, but after the pandemic hit, our Bond film took a couple of years, and I'm like, I think our film benefited from the extra time. The pandemic was horrible, but the extra time was great. And so what we're doing is like, last year was a planning year, and 2 years ago was a planning year, and this past year was filming year for Indy. We wanted to release it in May, but it's just too much going on. So we're going to release it in August is our plan right now when school starts again. But then so next year will be year one, will be like a planning year again for the next group. And then the next year will be a filming year. But in between, I'm going to make these films with Arts on Main in the town of Van Buren where I teach. And those films won't necessarily be fan films. And I'm thinking they're going to be kids rather than kids as adults. It'll be a little bit different. But so our goal is to just kind of build this up to where more kids outside of our school will have the opportunity to do this kind of stuff, dude. So it's really exciting. And because, in fact, we're planning, I've got a film that I'm going to shoot probably next winter with them. But point is, though, it's like I've actually had to turn down for the first time in ever, I've actually turned down 2 scoring projects because I'm so swamped with what I'm doing with the kids in this group and getting ready for the next group. And now I'm sure I'll come back to score. Of course, I'm scoring now. Anything that you hear in our films, I'm scoring anyway. And one of the things I've noticed is that as a director, I love it. I love directing. It's like the more and more I do it, the more I want to. And I can score the way I want to. Now, and let me tell you this, as a composer, my job is to help the director achieve what they want. And I love doing it, but I kind of like writing for myself more.
Of course.
It's like, and that's kind of a neat thing. Anyway, so it's like I'll probably score some for other people in the future, but right now, I'm just happy that this thing is with the kids is growing, and I see this continuing to grow. And eventually, someday, I mean, I'm not planning on retiring from teaching anytime soon, but when I do, could be 10 years down the road, whenever, I'll have this program with the county and the community to continue working with children. And that's very exciting, man.
How big is your crew, and is everybody a volunteer? How does that work?
Yes. The everybody's been volunteering, and the crew, it depends on the shoot, man. And let me tell you this about the crew. This is kind of cool. I have kids from past music club films. By the way, our group is called the Oliver Springs Music Club. We're at Oliver Springs Elementary School. If you look at the past ones, it says Parkview Music Club, because we used to be Parkview Elementary, but they opened a brand new school a couple years back. And so the entire staff and students moved into the new school. So we're the same group, just new name. This will be the first film under the banner Oliver Springs Music Club. But anyway, past music club members from the other films come to work on set. And and that's one of the cool things, is they want to come back and be a part of it again, just in a different capacity. Instead of being in front of the screen, they're behind the camera, which is really a neat thing. But yeah, and then like with my cinematographer that I've been working with, Clay, he's got some people that work with him at 5 Star Productions, which is the big video production house in town, and he's had some. They've come and helped him, with lighting and just, it's if you've ever been on set, it takes a lot to set up, when you got dolly track and you got all this, lots of moving parts. So, and then you got parents that will come and lend a hand. And I'll tell you, one of the most difficult shoots that we had was one of the caves. I went location scouting a long time ago to find these places, and or quite a while back, and I'd forgot that it was literally the steps were almost straight down. And so we had all these props and camera equipment, and we had to haul down. So we had all these parents trying to help, and we're all hauling this stuff down, and we went back and forth, up and down. It was a nightmare, dude, but no, it was fun. And in that scene, there's a scene in there that you're going to get the Raiders vibe too. Toward the end of the film, by the way, as I mentioned, it's based in Aztecs. I mentioned the treasure of the Aztecs, and you heard it in the trailer. So I'm going to give away. It has to do with Montezuma, who was the leader of the Aztecs in the 1500s. Yeah, man, it's fun. I can't wait.
Great, man. Yeah, I love when obviously it's great to remake the existing films, but it's cool to see original stories, especially because it seems like you've put a lot of thought behind it.
Well, yeah, and talking about the story, as I mentioned, this is the longest one by far. And what happened was, as I was writing this, I kept thinking, man, this is going to be too long. But after the big adventure in the swamp, and again, I'm not going to give too much away, but he's looking for something that's part of an unfinished quest of Abner Ravenwood that is going to lead him to. It's going to lead him to a map that's going to take him to the lost gold treasure of Montezuma. You know what I mean? So that first part, to me, there's 3 parts to this. There's part 1, which is the opening, and then he goes in this cave and he comes out and he confronts the villain. There's a chase and all this. And then it goes back to when he gets away, it goes back to the college. And one of the things that I wanted to do was it's a scene similar to Raiders, where the government agents come in and talk with Indy. And the way I wrote the dialogue, the way it feels, it's like, you get it. You're like, oh yeah, this feels like this feels like Indy, except it's a different story, and it's got different, it's got additional characters in it, and but that scene, that particular scene, there's a lot of dialogue, and there's some time I'm like, man, should I cut this dialogue down? This is a lot of dialogue for kids, but I'm like, no, because it feels, you know what I mean? It would take away from the story if I started cutting it back. So the story went longer, and hey, we've even got a map section. I've got a guy. If you want to go back and watch any of the other stuff, if you watch our Batman film, I found this guy named Michael Menzef, and he redid the entire opening of Batman. If you remember the 2D version, where if you watch it, it looks identical to it, except it's widescreen, because it wasn't widescreen back in the 60s. Anyway, so I got him to come along, and he did the map section. He did it. We've got a map section, and of course, was overlaid with old planes, and and here's a good one. The beginning of it, we start out with the Paramount Mountain, except he redid it, and we made it for our music club. You know what I mean? It's got the different words for our music club, and that transitions into it. So again, my goal was to make this from the beginning all the way to the end feel like an Indiana Jones film. I mean, even the font of the credits, the scroll at the end, is the same font that they used in Raiders. I mean, it's
nice. I can tell that there's a lot of love for Indiana Jones behind this. It really shows.
Absolutely, dude. I can't wait for people to see it when it comes out. And again, my plan is my cinematographer. In fact, after we finish, I'm going to visit my cinematographer, because he's helping me tweak the colors. I've been color correcting, but we're going to get together, because he's done this more. I'll be honest with you. In the past, I had my own cinematographer and my own editor, but on this one, this art center in Van Buren, they got me a computer to edit, and so and I've edited some before. I mean, I edited our James Bond trailer and did some other stuff. So I've got, and it's so much better for me to be able to just shoot a scene we'll shoot a scene over a weekend, then we'll come back, and within a few days I've got the edit done. It's so much smoother process, and I really enjoy it. But color correction, I'm still working, and we've got a I don't know if you know what a LUT is. It's like an overlay on film to give it a certain look, and I found a LUT that it emulates Kodak, the Kodak stock that Spielberg used in the 80s. And so we're trying to, it won't be exact, but it's going to be, we're trying to get the colors as close. And so point is, though, after we get off, I'm going over to my cinematographer's house, and we're going to tweak on the trailer, because my goal is to release it next week before Dial of Destiny comes out. I think that'd be a good time,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, perfect. I noticed you're wearing, oh, no, go ahead if you're say so.
Oh, you want to see my shirt? Is that your...
Yeah.
Indiana Jones and the Treasure of the Aztecs. So here,
that's great.
So there's a guy named Robert McConnell. He lives in Ohio. Let me tell you this. This is another cool thing. Making these films, I have made friends with so many people, and Ron McConnell, I met him back when we did Star Trek. He does graphics. He does computer generated graphics, and he replicated the entire opening of the original Star Trek series for our show. And it looks, if you go back and watch our Star Trek film, and by the way, the kids sing in the opening of that one. It's pretty cute. So, and that one's called The Adventures of the USS Parkview, because we were Parkview then. So, but anyway, so he did that for us, and he also did the poster. So since then, he has made posters for I've got a lady named Brenda Yelvington, and she's an amazing photographer. She takes photographs on set, and then I send them to him, and he makes these cool posters for us. So he made all our posters, and then one day I look in the mail and I got this thing, and he started doing T-shirts and made me a T-shirt. In fact, it's on the back. I don't know if you can see this, but it says director on it.
In the font.
Anyway, so I called him up and I said, "My can we get one from?" So I got one from my cinematographer Clay. He's got one too. So that's kind of fun.
Oh, that's so great. Well, obviously, I love Indiana Jones, but I also
Oh
love
yeah.
James Bond. I don't know, you can't really see, he's on the poster next to Indy there.
Yep.
And yeah, and I love Star Trek as well. Obviously, Batman's amazing. So, like, you really touch on a lot of, like, the best movie franchises, but what is the future for your music club?
Just to continue again, after we release Indie in August, we'll do the big push. Um, After that's out on YouTube and is run for a while, I'll switch gears and get ready for the next one. I got some ideas, but I'm not publicly going to share right now because I'm still thinking, but it will be. I'll tell you this. It'll be something in pop culture that. See, well, here's another thing. When I do these films, sometimes kids, like when we did classic Batman, those kids had never seen classic Batman. So not only did I teach them about the film making process, but they were introduced to something that that they hadn't seen before. And so anytime I do these films, some of them, obviously, like with Indiana Jones, I think more people knew Indiana Jones than some of the other ones. But no, that's a kind of a cool thing. So I'll pick something that is completely different than Indiana Jones for the next one. And again, I've got some ideas. Sometime I might, privately might kind of tell you, but I don't want to put it out in public because I don't know for sure. But I've got some stuff starting to churn. But right now, my goal is to get those pickup shots. Like I said, we're going to pick up shots on the 22nd of July that morning with that Jeep and the horse. And then we're done, dude. We're done filming completely. Like I said, right now I'm just polishing, mixing music. I've got to go back. I mentioned that our film is 28 minutes. I thought it was honestly going to be like 26 or so. With credits, and I realized there were so many people when I got those credits in there. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's 2 extra minutes longer. So I kind of held off on the end of that credit music. So I got to do that and just polish dialogue, and we got to color correct and get those scenes in. But I think we'll be on track to be ready. Like I said, I'm thinking that I like to release these when the kids are in school because they get to, I'll show the whole school and then they'll go home and watch it. You know what I mean? That's helps the YouTube video. It helps drive up the views because your first few the first few days of the premiere of a video is important. And so I'll wait till the middle of August once the kids are back in school. Then we'll do the big premiere and of course I'll be sharing everything with you and with everybody on Facebook. And I'll tell you this too. I also want to thank because when I found the Indiana Jones page on Facebook, man, people just kind of came out because I don't know if you remember, but early last fall when we were getting ready to purchase the Indy hat and the jacket, I was trying to decide which one do I want to get, which one's going to be. And man, people just kind of came out and just gave their opinions on what they thought. And it was been very supportive. And so it's been very cool. So, very appreciative. So I just wanted to say thank you to anybody that has given me some advice on costuming and such. So it's been good. It's been helpful.
It's such a great community, honestly, and like we go to events and like everybody has brought like a card or some sort of paper prop or something they're passing out to everybody. Like everyone's just like wants to create experiences and people are making like fan films and fan comics and all these things. It's really exciting, especially these times. So where can people watch your other films and how can they follow you?
Well, if you on YouTube, my page is Kevin Croxton. And if you just find Kevin Croxton on YouTube, you'll find me there. You'll find there's one film that's not on there. We did a Harry Potter spinoff, and I've got to put it on there. It was on our school district's for a while. The school district put this YouTube page up, and something happened to it. I don't know, and that video vanished. So I got to put that back on there. But I know that my Batman my Batman's on my page, and the Star Trek's on there, and Bond's on there, and trailers and films as well. And like I said, they're not real long. I mean, the longest one is like Batman is like almost 13 minutes, and Bond is only like 11 and a half. So, but again, I would say the last three, the Star Trek, Batman, and Bond, those are, to me, they're all fun, but those have really, you can see a progression as you watch, and it's kind of cool. But yeah, that'll give you an idea of kind of what we do, and that'll get you ready for Indy. And again, I'm super stoked, and there's not only is there great locations in this, but there's like, you've got horses, pack llamas, snakes, all kinds of cool things in this, so that you don't see in the trailer. So it's going to be classic Indy, dude, with kids. So
that is so great.
Oh, I didn't tell you one of the things I don't know if I forgot to mention to you that I think is pretty cool, is when we got ready to do Indy, I'm like, man, I've always relied on other cinematographers for their camera, for their cameras and lenses. And so we went and we started doing we did a fundraiser to try to raise, well, first of all, the kids did a fundraiser to raise money for props and costumes, and raised a lot of money. That's how we were able to buy all the Soviet, put all the Soviet stuff together. But we had banks contribute, we had businesses contribute. There was a film festival up in Northwest Arkansas for high schoolers, and I got a message from that guy. His name is Trent Jones. He messaged me. He's the manager of the festival, and he says, "Hey, I want you to watch this closing ceremonies." And they named our school as Filmmaker of the Year, and so we got money there, dude. And so we were able to take this, and we were able to buy, a camera. We're shooting in 4K, and I was searching for the best lenses. And I went with these anamorphic lenses, which is, it's typically anamorphic lenses are just really outrageously expensive, but this company, Surrey, they make a look, they're not cheap, but they're more reasonable anyway. And we were able to shoot with anamorphic lenses to give it that widescreen look. So that's one of the things that I'm excited about on this film, is just in terms of the quality of our film coming up, with more of a cinematic look.
Well, thank you so much, Kevin. I really appreciate your time. I think people are going to really enjoy this video. So I guess if you want to just say any final words before we wrap it up here.
Well, I just want to say, first of all, I want to thank you, Kevin, for having me on. And I'm just excited to wrap this thing up and share this with everybody, and be looking for the trailer when we release it. And then, like I said, August we'll be releasing our film, and I'm super excited to share. And I'm excited for the kids are excited. The kids are excited. They put in a lot of hard work on this film, and it's going to be fun to see what everybody thinks. But again, thank you, Kevin. I appreciate you.
My pleasure. Thanks so much.